On today's episode of Beauty Behind the Brand, I'm interviewing Erin MacNeil, who's been on now 3 times. You do not want to miss this episode. We talk about money mindset, why having a spa mentor is so important, and how you can grow and scale your business with the proper mindset. So let's dive into this episode.
All right, we've got Erin on. Oh my gosh, like we were just saying, we were all doing our little chat pre-record, and we're just so many valuable things just in even that short amount of time chatting. And as many of you know, Erin and I guess it was what 6 month program we did. You were mentoring me through that, and so many takeaways. And one of the biggest things I really gained from your course was how to think of my business as a business. I think when we're in the beauty industry, we're like, oh, we just want to pamper everyone and, make a spa feel like a good vibe for everyone. But it's like, how do we actually make that profitable and understand the numbers, understand, oh my gosh, spreadsheets? Then you're not making emotional decisions. You're making the correct decisions to scale and grow that business. So today I want to talk about money mindset with you because you share so much content around that. You believe it. You literally live and breathe, and your energy around it, you can feel that. And I think our listeners, we haven't had anyone on talking about that, and especially female and in the beauty industry. It's a win-win.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm so happy to be back. And, as we were chatting, right, we want to just continue to add value for everyone. And definitely money mindset is one of those things. It doesn't actually matter what stage of business you're at or how much money you currently make or want to make. We all have certain hangups or barriers around money. And it goes kind of way back to what you were really taught about money. And if money was fluid in your family, or was it very scarce, or maybe you were taught money doesn't come easy, or maybe you were taught that money is only for certain people and people like us don't deserve all that money. And so whatever the conditioning or messaging that you got was either indirect or maybe it was direct. But I think we discount how deeply that is embedded in our mindset and our subconscious. And I see it, in every level of business. So as you know, we work with, you know, newer businesses that are maybe cracking 10 to 15K a month, all the way to the 150, 200K a month plus, right? And so different levels will require a different version of you, which includes your mindset. And so even if you look at different areas of an experience that you bring to your clients, like first, let's call out the consultation, right? When you think about going into a consultation, if you deeply inside aren't confident in yourself or you don't believe you're valuable. Okay. So this ties back to money, right? Because then you've got to ask for money. And if you don't believe deeply that you have value or that you're worthy or that you're an expert or like, who do I think I am to ask them to pay me this much? That's a first red flag for you that you might want to dig into. What is my money story here? Why do I think that I shouldn't be compensated versus the other person, right? Or like if you're deeply discounting, there's another red flag. Maybe you have a deeper conversation with yourself around why do we feel we've got to give everything away for free in order to feel like someone will finally value what we offer? So a lot of these like money stories that are buried, they really show up in real life everyday things that you do inside of your business.
And the little things you say to yourself without even noticing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, the whole one about like you have to, you have to spend money to make money, like things like that. But then there's also things like, oh, that's so expensive, or I can't afford that, or I could never go on that trip, or, you really catch yourself once you start really paying attention to the mindset around what money actually feels for you.
Yes. And you can start to make a shift. Okay, that's such a good point because if you can start to have awareness around what you're saying and catch yourself. So that's kind of first step is what am I saying to myself? And then challenging that belief system. Where did that come from? Because most likely that belief system did not come from you. It's not your organic thoughts. Those are buried things that people were conditioning you to believe. So catching yourself in one of those narratives, right? It's like, oh, money like that I could never have that, or I could never go on that trip, or that's so expensive, I could never afford that, or that, as you mentioned, right, is like not available. So if you can catch yourself in that mindset, telling yourself a story around money that isn't going to serve where you want to go, first is awareness, so that you can at least catch yourself, stop in your tracks to say, okay, I had that thought. I'm going to release that thought. I'm going to choose a new one, because that's for anything, right? If you want a new behavior, you just need awareness first that you're actually doing it, that it's not aligned with where you want to go, and you get to choose again. It's literally those simple steps. Not saying it's easy, it's just simple, right? And so if you can start to catch yourself in those narratives in and around scarcity, right? Like there's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that all the time. It's the market, it's inflation, and that's not true, right? If you look at some of the biggest brands in the world, you look at hotels, you look at travel, even if you follow Global Wellness Institute, they release every year what the beauty industry and the wellness industry is valuated at. If it were true that nobody is spending money and that everything, is halting, how is it more valuable now than it was before? And it's generating more now than it ever was before. And I can definitely attest for the clients in our program, they are making more than ever, right? And so as soon as and you probably experienced this for
Mm-hmm.
yourself when you started to shift from, remember, and I know a bit of your story and what your mindset was when you first started your business and the stories you had around money and
Mm-hmm.
why you hustled so hard. And if you were to sit and think, which I know you already have, it's like those stories were put there and it was so conditioned in you that you have to hustle hard and it's tough to make money. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why you were able to build a very successful business, but your mindset at a certain point stopped serving you, right?
Oh, I felt
So,
like it was the busyness. Like you almost had to just be busy to look like you were making money when really I'm like, that's not actually how I'm making the most money from that
right.
busyness. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of owners and operators, right? You sometimes feel guilty if you're not working really hard. And I promise you, it's going back to your money mindset because somewhere you were taught that you have to work and you have to trade time in order to get money. And as
Mhm.
you now know, you don't have to do that, right? Like I always use big examples for people so that they get it. Like, do you think that Jeff Bezos is working as hard as the employees in the factories pumping out orders? Now, not to say that he didn't work hard to get there and it wasn't a challenge to get there, but if you think about how much time does he actually spend working every single day? Last I am aware, he's like living the dream on a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean.
Hey there, beauty entrepreneurs and self care enthusiasts. Are you looking to enhance your beauty business with a top tier lash serum or simply seeking to elevate your own beauty routine? Look no further than Muskoka Beauty Lash and Brow Enhancing Serum. Proudly made in Canada, our serum offers the perfect blend of nourishing ingredients to naturally enhance your lashes and define those gorgeous brows. Whether you're aiming to retail a sought after product or enhancing your personal beauty, Muskoka Beauty has you covered. And here's an exclusive offer just for our podcast listeners. Enjoy a fantastic 15% off discount on your order. Simply use the promo code podcast15 when visiting muskoka.com to claim your savings. Again, that's promo code podcast15 for 15% off our lash and brow serum. By the way, it is our best sellers, so can't wait to see your before and afters.
That has nothing to do with putting items into packages and shipping them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's like if you don't start challenging your mindset at the entry level things, right? In and around, can I make this sale? Am I going to sell retail? And this is another one, what I see a lot is a lot of folks are not asking for the sale because in your mind, you're like, well, who am I? If they want it, they're going to ask. And you start to create all of these barriers and these boundaries and this resistance so that you don't have to step in to do the uncomfortable thing, which is ask for money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because somewhere along the line, you were probably taught like, don't ask for money. Don't be a beggar. Don't do certain things, right? That if you give yourself the opportunity to go back, you will be able to uncover that maybe the belief system you have in and around money is actually that root issue of why you aren't able to generate more. And I see this other one a lot where folks who have tried to shift their mindset in and around money, and they're like, okay, I just got, a big paycheck, or, something happened where they just received money. This also happens where somewhere again, because you haven't reconciled whatever your money story is, the exact amount that you just received that you're like, "Oh my God," but because you have a scarcity mindset around money, all of a sudden a bill will pop up. It's like, "Oh, my car broke down, my AC broke down," or something, and almost to the penny, you will have to pay the bill of the extra overflow that you received will go back out. And again, that comes back to maybe you were told like, or you witnessed that money comes in and goes out just as fast.
Mhm.
That was something that I had as, like, growing up. That's what I learned is, like, money comes in and money goes out, and that's how it works.
And what you were saying with the retail side too as well, Erin, is like don't shop with your own wallet. Shop with your client's wallet. And you never know. Like I have, especially living in Muskoka, like we have very wealthy people that live here. They're pulling up in like very old Toyotas that are barely running and they're worth millions and billions of dollars. Like you don't know who's there. And I think that's another thing is they're like, oh, they can't afford this, or this is too expensive, or this cream that I want to sell them. But it's like, give it value. Talk to them like it's a friend, like you're recommending this great product. Like I almost give myself a challenge every day. It's like if I am in there working with clients or I'm filling in for one of the girls, it's like making it look seamless to do sales, right? Like I think that's my goal with every client is like share my favorite beauty product with them that we have for retail. Or if we do have a special coming in, make sure we're talking about it. And it's like helping them out, like almost giving them that mindset of it's like you're helping them, you're giving them a gift, you're giving them this gift of this new product. Of course, they have to, it's not a gift because they have to pay for it, but you're like helping them out in the sense of giving them this insight that's going to help their skin. You're the professional. And I say that to my staff all the time, like, you're the expert. They're coming in here asking you because you're the expert. So, but I can see a lot of that mind shift change within my staff too when we talk about money and sales and commissions and all that. And it's almost like their minds just get intertwined within each other and they just can't think clearly. It's almost they just think too much about the money versus the actual task that needs to be moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And of course they would, because if what you learned was don't ask for money, or money doesn't come easy, or you've really got to think hard if you want to spend your money. I also had that one, right? It's like if you
Yes.
had a birthday and you got birthday money when you were a kid, and it's like you should hoard it, right? You should put it in the bank. Don't spend it. And so again,
Don't spend it all
that's
in one
what
place. That was always the line,
exactly,
right?
right? But if that's what you were taught, and again, like we want to just invite everyone to really sit and reflect, because if you don't find the root, this will always be a challenge for you. And I promise you. And then at every level, because there is a worthiness tied to it, there's a scarcity tied to it, depending on, what you were exposed to. And so, yeah, they won't ask for the sale or they won't promote a product because at the heart of it, it's like in their mind, they're like, well, I wouldn't pay $250 because, again, even though we say don't shop with your wallet, they still in their mind don't see the value, because if you were really taught that value is in a different way, until you rectify what that root cause is, it's going to be a block and a barrier for you forever.
Yes, 100%. And that's where I feel like when we talk obviously a lot about leadership in your program as well. And I think that's like creating, especially that management, that leadership, or even if you have someone really great at sales, get them to run one of your sales like monthly meetings or something to teach the rest of the team. It's like take your highest performer who's killing it with sales and who's just natural and get them to share their tips and tricks, or really do like even like a friendly competition or something to kind of get the morale going. And that's where I find you kind of see that shift, and it helps with team building as well.
100%. And so you were on one of our calls when we did around we did a I think we did a group call around positioning to sell. And
Yes.
named it positioning to sell, meaning put yourself in the position to make the sale, not do the sale, but position yourself so that if the person says no, you're still in the right position. Maybe they're not ready, or they have their own money issues, right? But when you start to look at sales in a different way and money in a different way, as I solve problems, and in exchange for me solving problems, there is a money transaction. So I use the example of, if you have a problem, money will solve that problem most times, right? In the sense, in like the tangible sense of, if I have a flat tire and I'm on the side of the road and I have to call the tow truck because my problem is I have a flat tire and I have to get off the highway, and I call the tow truck. Well, they don't just come and fix my flat tire. They recognize I have a problem, they solve it. And in order to solve my problem, I exchange money. And so when your clients are coming to you and they might have acne, or maybe they have rosacea, or maybe they have pigmentation, maybe they just want pampering, maybe they want maintenance. It doesn't actually matter. But if you understand and you position yourself to hear their pain points, listen to the problems that they have that are really concerning, you just position yourself to solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes as well, just like with money, it's a mindset. It's like changing the narrative in your mind. If you're thinking, I have to make the sale, I have to make the sale because I have sales goals, then you're just thinking about how do I sell this thing and then you miss the message from the client who is telling you all the reasons why they came in today. And so if you're not listening for that because you're already in your own head about making a sale, you've missed the whole point. So sometimes it's like, let's just let our guard down and let's listen. And
Yes.
so that will help you ease into some of those sales. And sales obviously goes back to your money mindset. And when you can start to unlock certain actions that help you start to create new evidence that, yeah, maybe I don't suck at sales. Maybe I just wasn't listening, or maybe I was putting too much pressure on myself, right? Like if you ever remember being in grade school and you thought about an exam or a test and you're like, I thought about it so much I went blank when I had to start doing the test. Well, the same thing happens when you're in a client and provider situation where maybe you've got to make a sale, right? Or maybe your boss or one of your KPIs is like retail sales or something, and you're too focused on the sale that you miss the information to make it easy. And once again, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Going back to your money story, if you were taught that it's hard to make money, you're going to, and our subconscious, our ego is very intelligent. There will be ways subconsciously that pop up that block you from making it easy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think if you can learn different tactics around, okay, I'm going to solve this person's problem instead of saying to yourself, I'm going to make this sale, it helps you shift into, okay, all my job is to listen and then provide answers to what they're saying if I have a solution for them. And if I don't have a solution, I'm still going to try and point them in the right direction. If you start shifting your mindset around how you show up in a consult, how you show up at the end of the treatment to complete the sale, right? And you think more about, what are the pain points that brought this person in today? How can I help solve their problem? How can I help alleviate maybe a future issue that they're concerned might happen? You start to show up differently. Then you're more open to creative possibility for what that solution looks like. And so saying what the price tag that goes with it, because again, it just depends. Well, you have this option or that option in terms of a solution. This solution costs that, this solution costs that. Which one would you prefer to go with?
Oh,
Right.
that's
And
all
I think
perfect.
sometimes, yeah, it's just like you get stuck in your head and therefore you don't move forward. And guess who loses? You and the client, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's where I find consultations are so important, and in that too, going in with the reason of like looking through their consultation and what brought them in, like that client consent form, and seeing like what problem they're coming in and what kind of program can I get them on that'll be beneficial for their skin, and giving them options. Like one of the girls that does like amazing sales with us, she gives them options where it's like this cleanser because of these reasons and this cleanser with these reasons, which one are you going to take home today? and like giving them, because it can be overwhelming, right? As a client walking in and there's a whole wall of skincare. And even as us, sometimes as estheticians, that becomes even overwhelming. And then we almost like, you kind of have your favorite ones that you're going to lean towards. But I think it's so important to show the client, like, these are the two options I would give you. This is why, and making it very sincere. And like, that's why we're all estheticians. That's why we're in the beauty industry. We want to help people and making that feel natural and organic. And that's where I find the best success, is just being like that friend to them and saying like, this is what I would use. This is my best route. Even giving them examples about yourself, right? I've seen a huge change in my skin using these products. And yeah, like you said, sometimes you overthink it and then it becomes almost like you're frozen. Like you don't know what to say or what to do.
Yeah, no, but I love that, again, if you have someone on your team, and I know you've got someone on your team who's amazing at sales, because they've really allowed themselves to make it easy and or sorry, I should say simple. Never easy, but simple.
Yeah.
And so simple in the way that you're like, okay, it's this or this, right? And so sometimes again, because what I also find in the consultation, and this still goes back to your money story, so I promise you, right? When you are hustling for your worth, and what I mean by that is you are so over educating in that consultation
Yes.
that you have now confused that client. You've spewed a bunch of info at them and they walk away going, I got to think about it. Now, if someone walks away and says, I've got to think about it, most of the time that's because you gave them way too much and it was way like too high level. It was over their head and they're like, I'm actually more confused now. Normally they don't tell you that, right?
Yeah.
But because you're trying to show how valuable you are, you're like shoving it in their face how much you know. I would recommend don't do that. Keep it extremely simple and keep it so like at a level in terms of the verbiage and the vernacular that you have. Keep it at a level that a 12-year-old can understand you. Okay.
Hmm.
When you can do that and you say it's this or this, and maybe there are 5 options and you don't have to present all 5 on the first go, right? You can say, I do have other options that I'm excited to eventually work toward, but here's where you would start, here or here, right? And when you can make it simple, because this is a marketing principle, right? Paradox of choice. If you can make it simple, more likely than not, the client will make the decision right then because it's simple.
Hmm.
This is a human behavior, right? We are looking for a path of least resistance. And so when you hustle for your worth and you over educate and you try to, in some instances, not show off intentionally, but just show how valuable you are because somewhere deep inside you were taught or you believe that you're not that worthy, right? Or you're not good enough. So you've got to show them all the bells and whistles so that they believe that you're valuable and they believe you enough to pay you. This is what happens. You start over educating and then you give them way too many options and then they choose nothing because they have paralysis in the decision making process because they're like, now I'm so confused. And I
Hmm.
promise you, when you're doing that in a consultation, that still goes back to your money story because it still goes back to whether you feel really worthy of that sale or worthy of that client's trust or worthy to take care of that person, right? And I see it all the time. So keep it simple. And if you can, I always say like dumb it down.
Dumb
If
it
you can,
down. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to. And I know that, most of the people that we work with, right? They're MDs, they're RNs, they're RPNs, they're NPs, they're like they've got their masters, right? But the thing of it is the client will not be able to make a decision if you are talking to them like you're writing your thesis, right? They don't get it. They only understand at a certain level. And if you overcomplicate it, overeducate, and do all of those types of things, instead of making it simple, right? It's like, what problem do you have? What is a pain point for you, essentially? Why did you come in today? Why did you choose us?
Yeah. The
So you
why
can,
is so
because they're
important.
going to tell you
Mhm.
all of the reasons. Well, I chose you guys because I saw this thing and then I felt like you were speaking exactly to me. Or I came in today because I have a wedding coming up and I really want to look da 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 da. They're telling you all the reasons. So all you have to do is repeat back to them that you heard, understood them, and you have solutions to help them get the outcome that they're looking for. It literally is that simple. But again, when we when we haven't reconciled deeper inside of like, I am valuable, I hold knowledge, I am worthy of high compensation, I bring value, I solve problems. If you in a very like, you know, I hate to say it in a way that like you have to develop yourself first in order to be great. And
Hmm.
so it might happen little bits at a time, and that's kind of the way that it goes. But maybe just look at one area that you want to focus on. And if you can go into why do I believe that I can't do it? Or why do I believe that it's difficult to make money? Or why do I believe that I shouldn't be good enough to make $1 million a year? Because I hear that a lot, right?
Yes.
And it's
Hmm.
like, oh, well, I live in a little town. My little business, again, what you mentioned before, Nicole, is like, what is the story inside your mind? If you say,
Hmm.
I'm not worthy or I'm from a little town, these kinds of things, they impact in the long run and they don't necessarily position you for success. So if you can take that time to reflect and go, what was I really taught? And start to question, because I promise you, your belief system did not come from you, for all of us, right?
Yeah, a
That's why in
hundred
your
percent.
adulthood, you start to reconcile, like, wait a minute, what are my beliefs? What do I really believe? And
Yeah.
the beautiful thing is, you get to decide.
Hmm. And it's a generations handed down, right? It's just it trickles. It's like what did they say? The generation traumas, all the different things trickle down, right?
True.
And like be okay to be that change. Be okay to start educating yourself, reading books, being part of mentor groups, reaching out to like-minded people or people that you really idolize and look up to. We're like we have the internet, right? Like what you and I are doing, right? Like jump on a call with someone that you want to be mentored with or other people that are doing what you want to be doing in 5, 10 years, right? And that's where I really obviously valued the group that we had also with the mentoring was we were in part of a group and when we were going through tough things, everyone was so like accountable to help each other and give advice without judgment. And it was like a safe place, I think, for everyone that felt value. But then it was also like very good at brainstorming, like even the open houses and having different events. Like some of the great advice I had was like, keep it simple for people coming in and not overwhelming them with a million different offers. And one of my favorite spreadsheets that we did in your course was talking about the service cost breakdown, but then also having the sales section. So when you could see the percentage sales, so we usually do monthly specials, as you know, at the spa. And it was like, sometimes I was offering the special and I wasn't even making that much money off. I'm like, I was basically giving it away for free, right? So really making sure that you're following the spreadsheet, you're following the profit and loss, keeping an eye on things, but also like feeling good about it and having that motivation and that money mindset in the sense of like longevity, the wealth behind it. And that will really I've seen a difference in my shift. And I even noticed that when we were away, even on our honeymoon, I had this like positive feeling about the business while I was gone. And our sales like blew up while we were gone for our online business. And I think a lot of it was like manifesting, right? You're putting that energy out there. I know a lot of people think like different ways, but I truly believe if you like actually truly believe in that, you're throwing it out into the universe, it's going to happen. And I see it coming true time and time again. Kind of like what you're saying in the negative sense, money comes in and it comes right back out at the same time. And I feel like the generation, especially like our parents' generation, was like work, work, work. If you're not working hard, this many hours in a day, you're not making enough money. And I mean, I was on vacation in Italy for 10 days and I made more money while I was away for 10 days than I probably did the month before, right? So it's so funny how it changes and revolves all the time, but it definitely, I see it, the ebb flows with the way my mindset is with that.
Well, here's what I would offer back to you is like, it's easy probably right now for you to go, yes, I truly believe it. But the reality of that, because I know and I've coached you, that didn't start a year ago.
No, no,
That
not at
started
all.
more than 12 years ago, right? When you look at your first year in business, right? That's a long time ago. So you are like version Nicole 12, 15.0, right? Like
Yeah.
it's it's your evolution brought you to this point, but the fact that you were willing to shift, you were willing to be coached,
Hmm.
it gave you more available energy to believe something new and call in more for your life.
Yes.
And once again, I agree with you. Yeah, that can sound hocus pocus. Sure. But here's the thing I would offer to people is if you think that that's hocus pocus and you are someone who is currently stuck, you are not making the money that you want, I would offer to you, if you continue with the same mindset, are you going to be happier with where you're at? Or is it possible that if you were to be more open, try something different, since well, we already know that what you have been doing isn't working for you? If you open yourself up to be mentored, to be coached, to take on a new thought process, a new mindset, you might just be surprised at how fast you can shift and how fast your world can change. And so sometimes people are like, oh, that's hocus pocus, or that's, that's like, magic. No, give it a go, because what you're doing right now keeps you stuck, obviously, because that's your reality. And so for you, Nicole, it's like now it's very easy for you to say openly, I felt light. I felt ease. It felt effortless because you've literally put in over a decade of mindset shifting. And it's not like it was always, vertical.
Mhm.
Sometimes you're like a little bit this way and sometimes you go backward, right? And that's all part of the process, is challenging yourself to, can I be more open? Can I be more adaptable? Can I call in more? Because there's that saying, right, is like, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so for you, I feel like, especially in since I know you, when you were really ready for that next level, and not to say it was me, it was your willingness to be
Yes.
open, right?
Mhm.
Look at how much your life has shifted in the last, not even year, right? Because I think we started working together
Like October, I think.
nine, 9 months ago, something like that, right? 10
Yeah.
months, I think.
Yeah.
So in less than a year, look at how fast your world shifted. You went from working inside of your business, right? The spa,
Mhm.
to then being able to focus all of your attention, not working in the spa anymore, focusing all your attention on your other business and making that grow and flourish. And now the other business, and here's the other beautiful part, is because you've started a second business, you now know what to do and not to do. So it actually grows faster, right?
Yes.
And not to resist, and to be open, and that coaching and mentoring, right? Because people come to me all the time. They're like, Erin, what's the shortcut to success? This is so hard. I don't want to do this. It's so much time and energy. Yes, it is. The only shortcut you're ever going to get, and I promise you it's not fantasy marketing, it's going to be getting a mentor
Mhm.
in some capacity. If you can get someone on your team, by your side, guiding you and mentoring you because they've done what you're trying to do before, that is your best shortcut that you're ever going to get.
Oh, I can attest to that, because even Natalie, we were talking about that, and she was like, "What are some of the biggest things you've seen like change since taking the course?" And I was like, "Number one, my mindset, because also I thought I was a good leader. I sincerely did. I think I just like always just thought of myself as a born leader, but there is different ways of leadership, and that really made me open up to that of like letting go. I thought I was good at letting go and delegating, but it's like the proper ways to do that and creating systems. And then, yeah, if you do go away or something does happen, the systems are in place or people know the answers, your protocols, your hiring. There's so many things that we need to be revamped. And that's where I felt okay to hand off that torch and not be, I mean, I do look at the schedule all the time, but like, you know what I mean? It's like breaking almost those habits is really hard. And even though I was very involved in the business, even though I wasn't in treatment, I was still involved. I was living and breathing it every hour of every day. But sometimes people didn't realize that, right? They were like, oh, she's working from home. I'm like, I'm involved in the business as much as anyone else.
But what was happening in your mind? You were still hustling for your worth. Do you remember we
Exactly.
had that conversation? Because in your mind, you couldn't reconcile that somehow you were meant to feel guilty. If you weren't hustling hard, you didn't deserve to earn money, right?
A
And
hundred
that's
percent.
why you were
Mhm.
trying to prove to your team at one point, like, hey guys, like, I'm working from home. Look at all the things that I'm doing, when one, you didn't have to do that. And two, it was more just, it was like you talking to you, right?
Oh,
And
I was
you were able to
laughing.
shift, right?
Oh, I was looking at my old schedule. It was like our old booking system, and I would literally be working from home, and I would use the work schedule. I don't tell people to do this, but it was like my validation was I was putting when I was working from home the things I was doing, so the girls knew I was actually doing things at home because I felt guilty that I was working at home, that I needed them to see my calendar of what I was doing, so they knew I wasn't just sitting at home eating bonbons with my feet up.
But think about it, that came back to your worthiness, right? Because you needed to justify that, like, hey, I'm earning my money too. And so somewhere along the line, you got the message that you should only be making money if you're working, right?
Yes.
And again, you were trying to prove that even though your team wasn't necessarily asking you what you were doing, but you were kind of putting it in their face, like, hey, well, just in case you were wondering, right? I'm not sitting around with my feet up. Now, when you really look back, that was you judging you
a hundred
based on
percent.
whatever conditioning you were taught that, like, you shouldn't make money in an effortless, easy way, that it
Mhm.
can't be fun, right? And so you've shifted so much. And I, like, as a coach, when I see women like you just go, like, you literally skyrocketed in the sense of, like, not only income, but when we look at just who you are today versus who you were last fall, like, I see the biggest difference, and your ability to be open, to be coached, to start letting go, to put things in place to make your life easy, which again, in tandem, we're also working on that mindset, right? Because if you always have a belief system that you have to be grinding and hustling and working and trading time for money, you're going to be in the saddle forever.
Sign up for a free trial of Mangomint today and tell them you heard about them on this podcast. You'll get a second month free. We highly recommend you jumping on board of Mangomint because it has changed our brick and mortar and our spa location for the better. It has taken the guessing work out of everything with their reporting, admin, and clients absolutely love it. So make sure to mention that you listen to this podcast and they will give you a 1 extra free month. So that's 2 extra months that they are offering you through Mangomint. There is no risk. It's easy onboarding and their customer service is absolutely outstanding. So make sure to email them today and hear more about Mangomint from our podcast.
Right? Like, you're never going to
Forever.
have freedom.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you probably won't call in abundance. You won't call in like an overflow of money. Right? So it's like, again, always this, you're challenged as an entrepreneur to do that inner work, to shift your mindset, to challenge your belief systems, to recognize when you're doing things that get in your own way, while also still showing up in reality and then putting those things into practice in a different way, which you executed beautifully,
Well,
right?
with help, come on.
I
And
mean,
that's
like, listen, I always say, like, just like an NBA team, right? Like, I'm the coach. I can tell you we can write up the play, but you have to go out and make that basket. You have to go out and do that play, right? So,
mhm.
yes, I helped coach you, but really it was you. And because you were open to that, and I think one of the things that you showed your team was truly valuable was mentorship. Because
Yes.
even when I look at your role right now with your leadership team, and the rest of your team, you have a very different way of how you show up, and that they are so now open to mentorship. They're
Yes.
open to being coached and they're open to being led, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that you have really been able to take what you did with me and then amplify that in a different way with the rest of your team also. So it's like that trickle down effect.
Mhm. And that's what I like within the whole conversations with my team and how to actually do like a proper like personal assessments, like doing the personal performance reviews and like letting them have the floor as well of like how are they doing instead of just going right to the reports and being like this is what's going on, like really make them feel comfortable and make it like a team effort. And that's what the feedback's been. Like we do like the anonymous boxes and stuff that they can put suggestions and such in. And there's been a lot of positive feedback coming out of those. Not usually it's just like, you hate to look in the box and it's all this negative energy coming out, but it's been positive. And that's where I find what you were saying about the mind shift. I feel like it's almost like you're like the one running their minds in a sense too, because if you're miserable, you're upset, you're being negative, it's like a bad apple in a bunch, right? It's going to spoil everybody. And that's where I found like that shift. And everyone just, I was in there actually today filling in, one of the girls was sick. So I was in filling in for clients, and I just felt like this energy, and even clients are feeling that. And it's just like that aura, and making, even talking about money mindset, like some of the girls are looking to buy homes, and there's all these exciting purchases that have been happening. And I'm like, this was not like this like 9 months ago. And it's everyone's chiming in. There's been a lot of positive talk about like vacations and things happening. And I'm like, this is all great. And they can all talk together without judgment. That's another thing I find is like females don't talk about money. I feel like I grew up in a household, like we were all entrepreneurs, so everyone talked about money. It was like weird not to talk about it. But I find a lot of females don't talk about money. And that's something I love what we had in the group with your mentoring group as well, is it's like everyone felt comfortable talking about the numbers, diving into them, and really looking at the numbers and figuring out what makes the most sense. And then your team feels more comfortable. Like they know when they're going to be making more money, because if they hit these goals or KPIs, right? So let's talk about that a little bit more in the sense of like mentoring, and then also having like that mindset within the numbers.
So, as you know, numbers are a major focus, not for me in my program. We centralize it because it has such a big stigma around it with most, and I would say more female owners, especially in the spa, beauty, wellness business, is because, again, we typically get into it because we're a provider, a practitioner, a therapist, or an esthetician, and we love to do our craft. So we're not necessarily business people, right? And so again, it all like, and I can't stress this enough, like it always ties back to your mindset, and it's specifically around money or worthiness, right? And I just find that they go hand in hand. And so when you start to do the practices and the exercises to understand the numbers, because most likely you were taught, oh, don't worry about that, or it's a more masculine thing to
Yes.
handle finances. It's more of the masculine role to do math and all of that. So a lot of feminine energy leads toward more the nurturing stuff, right? It's like, I'm a provider, I like to do treatments, and I like to make people feel good. So you have to also step into that role more around, what are my metrics, what are my numbers, and all of that. And so I think when you can uncover that and you start to get comfortable looking at numbers and identifying things, and then when you understand it, and it's really this simple, you normally avoid what you don't understand.
Oh,
But here's the
100%.
thing, if you own a business and you avoid the numbers, the business goes away.
Hmm.
That's what happens, right? And so if you want more business, you've got to dive into numbers. And I don't just mean numbers like doing math. I mean your KPIs, your metrics. What do your numbers tell you about your business? There's a bunch of different ones that we go through in my program. But once you get comfortable for yourself, then you get comfortable to talk about it. Then you get comfortable to teach about it. And now your whole team understands. And if everyone is on the same page around goals, metrics, numbers, how to calculate it, what is good, what isn't good, what are we looking for, how do we collaboratively all get there together? When everybody feels good about it, right? Which is what happened with your team.
Yeah.
And it started with you because you were like, I don't really know these numbers. I know that the business makes enough money that we're sustaining ourselves. And that was your main concern. And I said, well, I think we can do better than that, right? And
Hmm.
so then teaching you about certain exercises to uncover what is working, what isn't working, what do you want to do versus what do you have to refine or change. When you learn that, you then taught it to the leadership team. Once they learned that, then they started talking about it in team meetings. Then everyone was aware, right? It didn't happen overnight. But over the course of 6 months, everyone went from not understanding how they earn their money, how do they reach KPIs and goals, what is the direction of this business, to now being fully on board, that they understand what the expectation is, they know how to deliver, they know how or what to do inside of an everyday operation, how are they going to meet that goal, and how do they quantify their success. So I think when we look at numbers, normally, if you're, let's say, avoiding or
Yes.
you want to
Mhm.
shy away from it, it's normally just because you don't understand it, and rightfully so, right? If you didn't go to
Yeah.
business school, even then, trust me, I've worked alongside of many folks who went to business school. I've had clients who have MBAs, I've had clients who have business degrees. So it happens, right? It's just a different sense of how you're going to apply that. And so if you haven't done those things, it's totally reasonable that you aren't sure. And yeah, it's feeling a bit overwhelming and it can feel difficult, but it doesn't have to be that way forever. And so that's why centralize in our program is also teaching you the numbers of business so that you really feel like you can shed that, again, going back to your money story, right? You now know what you're worth. You now know what you generate. You now know what an hour of time open in the spot is valued at. You know what every single person on your team is capable of. And that all relates back to some metrics. And when you
Hmm.
have that, then you can communicate it, then you collaborate on it. And when you have that open collaborative environment, more ideas pop up, more energy, all of the things, right? Because now everybody's involved and we all are rowing the boat in the right direction, right? Speaking of rowing the boat in the right direction, it also allows you to see the people in the boat who are rowing in the opposite direction, who
Yes.
don't belong on the
Hmm.
team, right?
Hmm.
And so when you can start to do that, you can easily identify where you can step in and maybe help guide or mentor someone on your team to the point at which they either change or turn around, or you recognize this really isn't a great fit. Because I see this happen a lot in business where you have someone on your team, and because of history or because of time and somewhat loyalty, even though they're not a great fit, you hold on to them and you actually, because you were mentioning something about energy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you recognize that even just having the wrong person on your team can stunt your growth.
Yeah.
And I've seen it time
100%.
and time again with like dozens and dozens of practices. And even like when I was a director, same thing happened. So it's, not just all about having only the right people, but are we being a leader, guiding and mentoring in the right direction to get them, you know, hopefully up to standard and up to expectation, but also knowing that if they can't get there, maybe it's just not a good fit and that's also okay.
And I think the energy gravitates you to people, right? Like I was at a women's event in Huntsville. This was in the winter time. And I just like this woman just had so much poise and energy and like it's just like everything I like hope to be, right? Like and I'm moving towards and working towards every day, right? And I went up and spoke to her. She had done a presentation. I went up and spoke to her afterwards and like love to have you on our podcast. We were like exchanging information of what both of us did and now we're actually working with her. She's one of our she owns her own agency, but she's helping us with our beauty product line and promoting it on TV, different shopping channels, networks, and all these things. But it's so crazy. You create challenge or you create connections. It's kind of like dating. When I say to single people, I'm like, you'll meet someone when you least expect it, right? It's kind of like building a team or building connections. You'll meet people without even thinking you're going to meet someone that day, right?
Why? You have to look at the energy you're in, your mindset is attracting because one of the laws of the universe is like attracts like. It's
Yes.
not,
Yeah.
we didn't decide that. That's what happens, right? Which is why there's that saying, misery loves company. And you
Yeah.
usually see people of the same mindset usually flock together. And so
Mhm.
if you're a business owner and you're looking to elevate, and again, maybe you're not ready for coaching, but maybe you just need to be in a right networking circle where everyone is at a level that you want to be at. Put yourself in there, right? Because
Mhm.
the more that you attach yourself to high performers, the more likelihood that you're going to start performing differently and better, right? I
Yes.
can't
Yeah.
remember what the stats are, but it's something like if you put someone who is a low performer in the room
Oh,
with someone else, it lowers their productivity, I think by something like 30, no, it was something like 70%.
it's
But then if you
wild.
put in,
Mhm.
yeah, and then you put a high performer in with someone who's an average performer, and that average performer is next to that high performer, their performance actually goes up by like an astronomical amount. It's like 70%. Don't quote me, but it's something like that. It's like it's not rocket science. It's just like these are laws of energy, right? And that's
Yes.
why you see like attracts like. So when you met that woman, it was because when you walked in that room, you were open, you were receptive, and most importantly, because you talk about manifestation and things like that, which I believe in as well. But the thing is, you can wish and hope and think all you want, but you also have to take action. And the
Yes.
fact that you were courageous enough to walk up to that person, but again, you went with that energy and that mindset that, hey, I'm always open to be collaborative. I am open to meeting new people. I am open to possibilities, right? That's
That's
what
the
you mentor.
biggest thing. Honestly, like even with John and I think about that. People are like, well, how did you meet him? Or how did you create this business when you were 20? Or how did you start this podcast? I'm like, you can have all these great ideas, but you got to take action. And I'm one of those people, it doesn't have to be perfect to start. Like jump on and start recording or start your Instagram page and just start throwing content out there. Like even a spa, like I say that to a lot of my girls who go out on their own or people I meet. I'm like, my spa did not look like this. My service menu did not look like this. I did not like have any idea what I was doing. I just basically started it and that was almost 10 years ago. Like you just got to make some type of action to move forward. I mean, you can make business ideas and plans and all the things, but until you take that pen and paper and actually put it into action and create those connections and get out there, networking I feel like has been almost lost in the sense of with like COVID and like getting out and about. But I personally, and like we were talking about that before the call, it takes courage to go to some of these networking events and put yourself out there. And like you do a lot of public speaking as well. Like it takes a lot out of us to do those things, but then the energy you have after, you're like on cloud nine. Like you just feel like you could
100%.
take on anything.
Yeah, but it's like that. I was trying to think as you were speaking, what is that saying that like uh you won't know if you don't ever start, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So like sometimes people just don't ever, as you mentioned, they don't ever start that Instagram page or they don't start that business or they don't take that leap because they're so worried about it's not going to be perfect. But like the thing is, I would rather make 1,000 mistakes and still have what I have because the alternative is not having it at all. And
Exactly.
and
Mhm.
again, like if you find that you're in a place that you aren't happy, you feel stuck, you feel trapped, you feel overwhelmed, you feel lost, that's your indicator that it's probably time to do something different because you already know that the action or inaction has gotten you to where you're at. And if you don't love it, it's time to take different action.
And do you want to be an old lady in a nursing home and be like, I wish I did that? Like, I always think about that all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
life is so short, as we know, time goes by so fast. Like, even to think I'm already done your program, and I'm like, where did that time go? But then looking back at the amount of work we accomplished in that amount of time is it just blows my mind. Like, looking back and even doing the call with Natalie at the end there, I was like, oh my gosh, the amount, like looking back and reviewing all the information we have done and created and the calls, I think like if anyone is talking about taking action, anyone looking to get into mentoring, like I speak highly of your course. And obviously this is your third time being on the podcast. So obviously we love having you on, but I think it's one of those things is if you feel stuck, that's how I felt before your course is I felt stuck. I didn't know where to go. I didn't have someone to talk to in my community or someone really within my network that I felt like collaborative with to be able to do that. And I met some friends like we always message on Instagram. Like there's just something to do with community. And if people feel stuck, they don't know where to go, take action, get a mentor, whether that's Erin or someone else, and depending what industry you're in. I think that's the biggest thing moving forward and trying to, it keeps you accountable too, which I love that.
Yeah. I think, some people they get stuck on it's so hard, it's so difficult. And you could decide that it could be hard and difficult for the rest of your life if you want.
Yes.
Or you can say, you know what, it's going to be hard and difficult for the next 8 weeks or the next 3 months or the next 6 months. And it's like, I'm going to commit myself. And so this is what I love about what you did was you were like, okay, because I think we had had conversations before, right? And when you were ready, you were like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so sometimes it's having that hard conversation with yourself to say, I'm sick and tired of my own shit. I don't want to be here. And I'm going to give myself 6 months. I'm
Yes,
going to go
exactly.
all in. Imagine
Mhm.
you just went all in for 6 months, or you went all in for 8 weeks or 3 weeks. It doesn't actually matter, but don't make any excuses in that time. Put your head down, get to work, do the work. You did all of the exercises, you went through all of the modules. But if you can say, okay, I commit to myself the next X amount of time, wholeheartedly, I'm all in, you would be surprised because
Mhm.
you could have 6 months. In 6 months, your life could be completely different, or you could have 6 months of excuses.
It's like going to the gym.
Every
You and I talk about the gym all the time, right? It's like if you go
Yeah.
to the gym once a week, it's like, okay, are you really going to see that much of a difference? But if you're going consistently, you've got a workout plan, you're staying true to like all the things and your nutrition, you're going to see a change. It's the exact same
And
thing.
when you're done, you go, I actually feel better for doing it, even though it was difficult to get going. Right.
Exactly.
I say that to myself like the biggest fight I have in my mind is getting to the gym. And then once I'm there, I still do it begrudgingly. But then once I'm done, I'm like, okay, I feel so much better that I pushed myself to do that. Right.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and then you get the outcome that you want. So yeah, I think it's just about committing to yourself, right? Because it's like you could, in 6 months, your life could look completely different, or you could have 6 months more of the same story, the same excuses, the same reality.
100%. 100%. Is there anything I'm not asking or anything you want to add to, Erin, before we close off today's episode?
No, I think we covered a lot. I think it's just more important that if you are looking for guidance or looking for mentorship, we have our signature 8-week program. I still do one-to-one coaching, which is only on for a limited amount of time now because most spots are full. But that's the best way to start is if you're looking for like, okay, I just want to shift this around. I need to know a bit about my numbers so that I can get rid of that imposter syndrome. I want to know what I'm doing. I want to feel like a real business owner. I want some structure and I want some leadership guidance on maybe how I'm doing right now and what I can change. Our signature 8-week program is an amazing start. And as you mentioned at the top of the call, and I have to mention to people, and I don't know if you've seen this video on Instagram, but it's a gentleman who is in, a town square, and he walks up to a guy and he says, "Hey, do you want to buy this backpack for $1,000?" And the guy goes, $1,000 for that backpack? No way. And he said, "Well, the mistake that you made was you didn't ask what was inside. And so a poor person looks at this as expensive, but inside was $100,000 and you didn't even ask because you made the decision already that that backpack wasn't worth it."
Hmm.
Whereas a wealthy mindset would say, well, what's inside of the bag? What do I get? And so if you are thinking that you want to take that next leap, but you're nervous about the investment, you have to think about what am I really getting, not what does it cost me, right?
Yeah.
Because if what you really want is time freedom, you want more money, you want more resources, you want more flexibility and freedom, that's worth the investment.
Oh, and you can't put a price on that, honestly. Like that's what I said to Natalie in the review after. I was like, you can't put a price on it. Like it's just something even about just the confidence and making decisions that like you can't put a price on. You just know to make the you get decision fatigued as we all do, right? So I'm like, I don't even have to think of the decision. I know the decision right there in front of me, right? Through the program. So
I love that.
oh, we could talk all day, as you know. I feel like just so many takeaways, and obviously we'll have to have you on again. But thank you so much for your time today, Erin, and we will chat soon. I'm sure of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was so great to chat today. Thank you for having me on.
And we'll put all the show notes below as well, so you'll get, I'm sure, some requests coming through very shortly.